This is Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Our guests today are from Casa México USA, an organization that works to integrate the immigrant community into the mainstream through advocacy, as well as work in healthcare and education, among other areas. They also assist Mexican immigrants to process documents, vital records, and other issues with dealing with their home country. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for coming today. And let's start off by talking to you individually. Rosa, let's start with you. Talk to us about your role at Casa México USA and how long you've been there and what you do.
I've been in Casa México like around 2 years already, full time and getting involved in everything. But the main program that I'm in is the program who help the immigrants to look for their vital records in Mexico, to solve legal issues in Mexico, and also I'm in charge of helping here with any other problem, legal programs, immigration programs, and.
Okay, I'm sure there are a lot of issues going on. So you help connect them with lawyers and other.
That is true.
Okay.
I'm the part that connect them with any specialist that they need.
Okay, great. Netza Walcoyot would be your full name. Tell us about yourself, and you're one of the founders or the founder of Casa México USA?
That's correct, Juan Carlos. Thank you very much, first of all, for having us in here.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Netza Walcoyot, and it's an Aztec name meaning wolf hungry for justice.
Okay.
And Netza is the short name because everybody's like, what is that? So when they learn my name, Netza, the first name, then it's a Netza will call you. And then they'll say it's like Netza will call you. Yes, we founded the Binational Institute of Human Development, which is the mother organization of Casa México USA.
Okay.
Casa México USA is one of our main programs of Binational Institute of Human Development. And the Binational Institute of Human Development is an organization, it's a non-profit organization, which mission is basically two main things in our society. Community empowerment and immigration integration. We believe that our immigrants, like in this country, that was made up of immigrants, we must continue empowering our immigrant community. So we created Binational Institute of Human Development around 5 years ago. And I will explain to you a little further what Binational Institute is all about.
Okay, we'll certainly get into that during the program.
Thank you.
Allison, thank you again for coming here. Tell us about how you became part of Casa México USA and what keeps you there.
Well, I've been working with NETSA for probably 7 years, and we've worked on a lot of different projects and that involved communications, public relations, marketing. And when he was starting the Binational Institute, I was happy to join him to help him make a difference. I think it's important that we try to help everybody who comes to this country when we can, in ways that we can. And I serve as the intercultural liaison so that I lead all of the communications for the organization in English. And then I assist with our clients that are non-Spanish speaking.
Okay. And do you get a lot of non-Spanish speaking clients?
Non-Spanish speaking clients?
Yes.
Surprisingly, and I wouldn't say a lot, but we do. We do get a few. There have been a lot of Americans who have gone to live and work in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Then they start a family there and come back to the States. So oftentimes we get calls to get birth certificates for people who have never been to Mexico except when they were born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now we kind of touched on that this already, Netza. But what inspires? What idea? What watered that seed in the ground of your mind, of your heart that said, well, I need to launch something like this. I need to get involved in the community this way.
Thank you, Carlos. Actually, I came to Chicago around 23 years ago to work for Hilton Hotels Corporation. I was going to stay only for a year here to go back to open the hotels in Mexico. However, at that time, things didn't come through with the owners of Hilton's and the owners of Mexico, their partners. So I was not able to go back to the position they offered me in Mexico. Then I asked them if they could let me open the program for the Latino market for the corporation, and they allowed me. It was very successful. And I got involved with different organizations because that was my job, to integrate the community into the hotel, into the hotels, the Hilton hotels in Chicago. Every convention, every event, small business banquets, political, religious, of all kinds, were going to the hotel to conduct their business. So I decided 7 years later that, there was a bigger need, and there was a big opportunity to open my small business, which has been open for the last 17 years. And ever since that time, I continue working with the community. And the community always evolves and always changes in dramatic ways, but the only thing that you don't see is still the integration that we must have not only in the city but in the country. So of course we cannot change the whole world at one time. So with friends, like I always had, the fortune to have, with friends that are on the stage, the friends that are all over the place, we have been supported, and we strongly believe that only by integrating, we don't have to unify, but integrating efforts, we can really expand the development of our community. So it comes to three different concepts. Number one, it's about integrating the immigrant community through different programs, and the basic needs always education, health, community, and especially business development. Economic development is a big one for us.
Okay.
The second vision that we have in the Binational Institute is to work with other countries. The immigrants can not only come from Mexico, but we come from all over the world. So we are here already, and by working internationally, by creating sister cities programs, memorandums of understandings, binational agreements, bilateral programs, that's what we want to promote, more binational, international programs and agreements, but based on community organization. And the third one that is very important, the vision that we have, is to develop more productive and sustainable programs, which means that all the immigrants that we come from all over the world, but in our countries like Latin America and Mexico, we would like to see the locations, the regions where they come from, to be more viable, more economic developed.
Okay.
So we try to, in the future, create more opportunities so they can not only come back, but they can actually strengthen the region in that places. I think we all know that the only way that you stop immigration anywhere in the world is creating an opportunity. So that's pretty much what made us make this organization. Rosa and I have been working in different programs in the community, especially in education. We started a violin program, and with Allison, we have gone to the schools to teach children how to communicate through movement and dance.
Okay.
So we have worked together for a long time.
Okay. And you mentioned these areas of work, and certainly want to talk about all of them as much as we can. But one of the areas I saw through your website is that you work a lot in advocacy. What exactly does that mean when you're advocating for a community or for a group or for individuals? Tell me about that.
Our vision in advocacy is that we understand and we support organizations that go and make and organize marches. They are needed.
Marches of like protests. Is what you're saying.
Protest, or not only protests, but statements. Like the like the Mayo 1st, Primero de Mayo,
Right.
where we were looking for more rights and the immigration reform. We believe that there are people that are already making that job, and they're making it well. They're doing it well. But we also believe that we must have a different approach and put on the table different proposals that are viable, that are very well thought of, and that can be really produced. So in advocacy, we said, for example, Rosa always communicates, and I would like you to explain how you communicate with the different consulates. There's 52 Mexican consulates in the United States. And Rosa.
So tell us, Rosa, how about how you advocate for families and individuals here for documents with the consulate, and how that process works. I'm sure it's not always easy. Tell me about that, please.
Most of the consulates, Mexican consulates here in the United States knows us as for the vital records.
Okay.
They look for us, asking us for help for somebody who is needing the vital records.
And those records are
Birth certificates?
Birth certificates, death certificates, divorce certificates, and marriage certificates, or any other.
One of the main problems that the immigrants have is one thing, which is the lack of identification. When you come to this country and you come with a non-status, so we don't want to use the word that everybody uses, with non-status, you don't come with documents or anything from your country. You come here to try to make it in here. Once you are here, then you realize that everywhere you go, you need an identification. Then you go to the Mexican consulate, and they have a consular ID, which is called the matricula. But in order to have your matricula, you must prove who you are.
right.
How are you going to prove who you are if you don't have any birth certificates? They ask you for an ID to get you another ID at the Mexican consulate. So that's a big problem, and Rosa advocates for them because she talks to the Mexican consulate, and then through her department, she gets the birth certificates for the Mexicans here in the different states of Mexico. She also gets the school transcripts, anything that can help to identify that this person is who they are.
Okay.
So then she talks to the consulates directly, right, Comadre?
That
Now,
is true.
you know, tell me about an example of somebody you've helped that was a particularly difficult case. Maybe it was difficult to track down their records or something. Tell me about that and how it turned out, and hopefully it turned out well for them.
That's a case that my partner Allison was really involved in. It was a guy, a German Mexican, that born in Mexico. He didn't know that he wasn't a citizen. He was only a resident.
Of
But
Mexico.
Resident of the United States.
Okay.
But
He was born in Mexico.
he born in Mexico.
Now, Alison actually can tell you all about
Yeah,
it.
they bring
You're
him
the one
when
who-
he was a little kid.
His parents lived in Chicago,
Okay.
and then his mother went back to Mexico to deliver him, and then came right back to the States with him.
Okay.
So he's never lived in Mexico, doesn't speak Spanish, and has lived here all his life. And
Wow,
he
that's an
didn't
interesting case.
he didn't realize, you know, that nobody had ever done anything about his status until he became injured and wanted to get disability. And he doesn't have he never saw a permanent resident card, which he had. His mother had for him, I think, but we've had to really track down and figure out what to do with him because.
So
he-
what did you do with him? That's a really interesting case.
It's in the process. It's in
It's
the
still in the
process.
process.
We've had to.
But the
wo-
first thing that
yeah.
we did is tracking the birth certificate. He
Exactly.
didn't know the real name and that birth certificate. He had a name, but in Mexico he had two other names and two last names.
Right.
It's not the same.
Right.
So it
So-
was really hard for us, and one of our friends were looking into, and finally find it and bring it to the United States, and then she started it from that
But
point
Juan
to
Carlos,
start
this-
helping us.
That's what we're doing. But you know what happened to him? He had an accident, huge accident. He could not work anymore. He went to ask for assistance. The union assisted him for a certain time. Later on, they told him, you have to go now to public aid. He went to public aid and they said, hold on, you're not a U.S. resident or you're a citizen. What are you talking about? And
Oh, but he had a social security number. How else
he
was
had
it
a-
working? Right?
yes, he had a because remember in the past everybody could have a social security number. You just got here and you wrote a letter, even for a driver license, which is another advocacy part that we do. But with this gentleman, he could not have any help or anything else because to the eyes of the government, he was an undocumented person. And he was afraid that they were going to deport him.
And he's lived and worked and paid taxes in Chicago for more than 50 years.
Wow.
And considers himself a U.S. citizen. He's never lived anywhere else.
Wow, and it's still in the process.
So we have to apply for a copy of a permanent residency card, and we'll have to apply for a passport for him, a Mexican passport, and then we have
His
to
birth certificate in Mexico.
right, and then the whole process of citizenship and
So
it's
he has to
very
become a U.S.
complicated.
citizen.
First,
He is
yes.
gonna
Yes,
become.
yes. He's
Yes,
a Mexican
he has to ratify
citizen.
his residency.
Right, he has to first
Right, he's a Mexican citizen. He's a U.S. permanent resident, although he's never lived in Mexico.
Yes.
What an interesting case.
And
That's
he
very
doesn't, he
funny.
doesn't speak a word of
He doesn't speak
Spanish.
Spanish. He wouldn't know.
Well, you know, and then he found out he's got a first name and a last name Mexican. I said, at least it's not Pancho Villa. But I said, but it is kind of a little funny situation, thank God, because now we're helping him. But it was very devastating for him because he was thinking that he was going to be deported, like a lot of our people.
Right. Well, that's, and I'm sure there are many cases that are difficult. It's difficult to go and find these documents to help them track them down and help people just try to set some foothold here in this country. But let's move on. That's a really interesting case, and I do want to talk about your other areas of work as well. You also work in education, and that's one of the areas that you really seemed to emphasize during our conversation before the show. Let's talk about your efforts out in schools or in the community as far as education.
Rosa is a teacher of folkloric dance, and I want her to tell you about the Strengthening Our Roots program.
Sure, tell us about that, Rosa, please.
Well, we've been having a cultural program, tradition, how to teach the kids, especially the Mexican kids, where they are from, knowing the tradition, knowing the culture,
Okay.
through dances.
Okay.
through
Well, tell us what kind of dances and what you teach through the dance and why you think that's important for these children.
And the kind of dances, it depends on the program that the school decides, but mainly, let's say, they want to know about Jalisco. So
The state of Jalisco in
the state of
Mexico.
Jalisco in Mexico. We focus on the music of mariachis in Jalisco, and we focus on the stepping, the way that they do the zapateado in Jalisco, the way that they do the faldeo, and also we explain all that to the kids and also the parents,
Okay.
so they can be feel attached to their own little town or country.
But you're one of the aspects of your teaching also involves Aztec dance, correct?
That's right.
Correct. Tell us about that as well. And this is part also of your work with Casa México USA, right?
It is, and we also have a little program called Our Roots, Nuestras Raíces, and that program starts like talking about the pre-Hispanic, how they were working on the fields and how they were developing every area, also science.
Okay.
And then we teach a little dances and explain what the dance meaning and how the steps are and the drums, why the drum.
Okay. And how do the children respond to this? Beyond the children, how do their parents respond to this teaching?
I think that when the parents listen this kind of classes, they just go back to their own roots. Some of the parents start crying.
Yeah, actually, like we said, immigration integration is the goal, and our kids are losing their identity. We are in a very dysfunctional society. So one of the proposals that we put in the table is strengthening their identity to, getting them to learn their roots. And when you sing, when your father sings a song that you don't know about, but then you are being taught in your school about that song and you start singing it, the father connects. We did it when we were teaching the kids in different schools violin. We started teaching them with Suzuki, the Suzuki method. But then we put Kri Kri songs, which are are very old traditional songs from Mexico. And the parents, when they started listening to that song, like Rosa says, they started crying because they started singing to the play of the children. So they connect. That's why strengthening your roots through those programs. Teaching the kids what their parents used to do in Mexico, in their schools, in their traditions, in their culture, so they can connect and they can integrate. Because one of the biggest problems in education is the lack of integration of the parents. So with this type of a program, you integrate the family through the culture and tradition of the Mexican culture. That's basically what we do in education.
Okay, so it's a dance is more than just a dance. It has a much deeper meaning. It actually connects generations, is what you're saying.
Correct. Absolutely.
Allison, you're in agreement. Have you been part of this as well?
I
Tell us
think
about that.
The passport.
Well, the
Día de la Bandera.
I think that all of the immigrant communities that have come to this country have gone through similar difficulties in their first and second generation children, because the parents often don't speak English. The children go to school, they learn English, and sometimes lose their native tongue, and they have a hard time communicating with their parents. And the parents don't get involved in the school because maybe they didn't have a good education. And there's a disconnect often between parents and children.
Right.
And the children run off trying, becoming Americans, becoming what their school classmates are. And we want to really sort of resolve that by bringing them together. And there's a phrase about not from here, not from there. That
You're trying to actually make a connection to make them
right.
at least feel comfortable within their families
Right.
and where they're coming from.
And we think, like all immigrant communities, it's important that you retain your connection to your homeland, to your heritage and your traditions, but also it's important to be able to share those within the family unit. It really helps to dispel the dysfunctionality that exists in our society.
Okay. We are getting close to the end of the show, and I wanted us to talk about small business development, how you help people start those off, because that's a huge part of any community, but especially I think in immigrant communities, people looking to make a living often turn to themselves and say, I need to do something, I just can't look for a job.
That is correct. You know what? This is probably one of the most important aspects of our organization nowadays, because we strongly believe two things: that the Latino community, the immigrants in general, but the Latino community, which composes the largest number of immigrants in our state and in our country, we are creative, we are progressive, and we came here for an opportunity. We want to work. Everybody works and sends money to their country land, but also everybody saves a little, so they can also comply with their dream, which is starting a small bakery that becomes a chain of bakeries, a taqueria, a tamaleria, tamal shop. Then people go to do construction. How many of our immigrants come and do construction, landscaping, transportation, name it? A lot of them are already in business, but they are informally doing business because they don't know how to incorporate, how to do a business plan, how to do accounting, how to open a bank account, how to do their taxes. This is, so the opportunity that we see is not only diversification of the economy, but also multiplication of the economy, the injection of new jobs through the immigrants. Because instead of going and ask for public aid, you develop your job and 2 or 3 more jobs. Right. And we have seen it. We have helped people to open their cleaning company. We have helped a butter lady who now is independent, and she wanted to do her salsas, her sauces. Now she's going to flea markets, and pretty soon she's going to do commercial sales. So what we intend to do is train people, teach them how to start your own business with the two things, officially and socially. Officially, how do you go to incorporate Secretary of State,
Right.
taxes, and socially, how do you do it to sell? And so, and also the people who already have a business, how are you going to develop it? How are you going to grow it? So we are proposing to the government, and we're working with the government to do a small business center for this immigrant community.
Wow, and even though you don't have a small business center yet, you're still helping people. Well, you gave us a couple of examples. Do you have workshops, or what do you have? How do you bring people in to learn about all these aspects of business that they may not know about?
We've had some workshops, but now we're putting this plan already, which is going to be implemented very soon, where we're going to go to different places and do training.
Okay.
But also people go to the different events that we participate in, and they ask, and then they go to our office and we train them.
Okay, great. We're out of time. Well, thank you so much for coming out today and joining us and sharing a little bit of all that you do.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
And to you, our audience, thank you for joining us. Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.